I'll tell you guys something, nothing makes me eye roll more than when I hear people talking about the Wild Rose Cleanse or the Master Cleanse. It drives me nuts. So let's talk a bit about that. I'm Dr. J. This is Mindset Resilience. I'm a naturopathic doctor in Vancouver, Canada. I talk a lot about future-proofing, precision biohacking, functional genetics and functional medicine, and coaching in medicine. I post a video at the end of every week, and so do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button for more. Let me know in the comments if you have particular things that you'd really like to hear about from an evidence-informed naturopathic doctor practicing in Canada. For today, though, we're going to be talking about the 4 worst mistakes, the biggest mistakes that people make when doing a detox. That's the biggest thing that I want to get across today, so stay tuned for those 4 things. But let's get into things by talking a bit more about my perspective on that. If you don't know me already, a little bit about me, I just really love helping people understand how their brain and body are built to function at their best, and give them all the options that they have to help maximize their health, performance, productivity, resilience, and longevity. I really think that we are different in millions of different ways. We're all unique, right down to how we're coded at the DNA level, and by our environment and the experiences that we've gone through in our lives that really mold us. But by understanding how our individual brains and bodies work and being aware of the options we have available to us, that's how we can truly create precision medicine approaches to health and wellness, by arming people with the tools that we need to take a proactive approach towards your health goals. It's also how I believe that we can change the world one person at a time, and that's what really floats my boat. So getting back to talking about these detoxes and getting towards the 4 big mistakes that people make on an ongoing basis with detoxes, and I see this all the time in my practice over 15 years. I'd mentioned Wild Rose and Master Cleanse protocols and stuff like that, things that you can get from the health food store, even from the pharmacy these days, especially here in Vancouver in Canada. But these commercialized one-size-fits-all detoxes are really nothing more than glorified laxatives, and they can be dangerous even if you've done it a million times before and you've gotten good results from it. And I'm not saying you won't get some benefit from them, but what I am going to be talking about today is what true detoxification really means. I've seen lots of people talking about, detox isn't really a thing. That's not a medical thing. Yeah, absolutely. Detoxification is a real thing. That is a biochemical process that is essential for our health and longevity and optimizing our health. So let's talk a little bit about that. Detox and cleanse are words you're probably hearing a lot about at this time of year. We're solidly into late spring now and early summer. And I get it. I mean, allergies are annoying and frustrating, and we're looking to trim down for the summer season. I think I'm in Vancouver, it's really dreary here today. And the dark, cold winter, combined with a certain pandemic virus has certainly left us feeling a lot more lethargic and depressed lately, lonely even. Detoxes and cleanses can be a great way to snap out of the winter blues and shift into spring or summer mode. And I do agree that spring and fall, for that matter, are the best times of year for us to be engaging in transition and renewal when it comes to our diet, and thinking about transitioning into a new style of diet in terms of what foods are available to us locally and when those foods are most typically best available to us from more local resources especially. It's a huge opportunity to do these detoxes and cleanses once or twice a year to also reset our body and our brain, our gut and brain. But detox is not just about pooing, nor is it just about cutting out gluten and dairy from the diet. Those are 2 really common things that people are cutting out on their cleanses. Detoxification is a chemical process, a biochemical process, and this is where fad detoxes and cleanse really fall short and where they fail immensely. They do nothing to actually facilitate optimal detoxification at the chemical level. They only facilitate detoxification as far as clearance. So really what a Wild Rose or Master Cleanse program and those kinds of glorified laxative programs cleanses are doing is just facilitating excretion, which is part of detoxification, but it's not the focus of what we're talking about here, where we're referring to detoxification as a biochemical process within our body. And most of these fad diets are actually can be a lot more harmful than helpful in the long run if we're not addressing the major components of chemical detoxification. So I said at the beginning, the most important part of this video was going to be about the 4 mistakes that people are making when they're doing detoxing, and the 4 issues associated with detox that I think we need to talk about. So let's get started with a big controversial one that I hope people are going to try and rip me for. I'd love to have more conversation around this, but I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. The number 1 mistake that people make when doing a detox is juicing. I hate juice detoxes, man, and detoxing by juicing. And let me be clear, juice fasting and juicing certainly plays its role. Yes, you can definitely get high amounts of nutrients into your body very quickly through juicing. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, juicing is stupid. Juice cleanses are even stupider. And yeah, stupider is a word. I don't care what anyone tells me on that. Juicing removes all the fiber from a very healthy food before consuming it. And so now what you're doing is you're consuming a really high glycemic index food. High glycemic index and high glycemic load foods really spike your blood sugar levels and insulin levels for that matter as well. In other parts of my platform, if you've heard me speak before, you'll hear me talk about how there are 3 major underlying processes to basically all chronic disease and dysfunction. And chief amongst those is blood sugar imbalances. So blood sugar imbalances and insulin resistance, big, huge part to chronic disease as far as an underlying process. Oxidative stress, free radical damage and inflammation, and those things all kind of interact with each other, and they sort of they synergize together in a negative way as well, alongside blood sugar imbalances. So blood sugar imbalances are something that you're really facilitating poor blood sugar management when you're juicing, in my opinion and in my experience over the course of my practice. So when you're juicing, you're not eating a whole food. And I find it hilarious that, the people who are most adamant about juicing and are saying, you gotta do juicing and I do juicing every morning, are also the same people who are out there, on the other hand, saying we've got to eat a whole food diet. And yet you are literally throwing out, maybe not throwing out in the garbage, but hopefully we're composting the waste products here that we're letting go, but you're letting go of all the fiber. And in some cases, for some fruits and vegetables, some of the best vitamins and minerals and nutrients that can be most health promoting for performance and productivity and longevity and resilience. Some of those things are contained in the skins or the peels or some of the flesh that you might actually be letting go of. And I'm sure all of you who are listening to this video understand at least the basics in terms of fiber being an essential nutrient and really should be thought of as an essential macronutrient. So if you're not eating a whole food, if you're taking vegetables and fruit and just juicing them and just drinking juice on an ongoing basis, you might as well just be eating candy and a multivitamin every couple of hours. So don't do that, by the way. Juice companies keep you coming back for more because you get a massive carbohydrate boost, which feels great, but then a corresponding carbohydrate crash or carb coma, some people call that afterwards, until you get more blood sugar. So then you want another juice. So it's a great business model if you're looking at getting people, I hesitate to use the word addicted, but certainly adapted to needing carbohydrates on an ongoing basis. And that leads us to the next mistake that people make in doing detoxes, and that is no or low protein. Protein insufficiency or not getting enough protein is a massive problem in detoxifications and in detoxes and in cleanses, and especially in our fad diets, our fad detoxes and cleanses, and our retail and consumer-based detox programs. Protein is not something that's encouraged enough, and we're not talking about protein adequacy enough. So I want everyone to say this with me right now. We're going to say protein is essential for detoxification, okay? protein is essential for detoxification. That is a physiological fact. Chemical detoxification requires amino acids from proteins for the various components of what is known in medicine as phase 2 detoxification. This is one of the final steps in the chemical detoxification process that makes really nasty chemicals be more able to be excreted or eliminated from our diet, particularly through our bile or our stool and our urine. So as these chemicals that we're trying to get out of our body, as these things that we are breaking down and metabolizing in our body are being converted into forms that our body can eventually get rid of, those intermediates, we call the products of phase 1 detox, they are referred to as reactive intermediates because they can actually cause more free radical damage until they are protected by glutathione and other antioxidants and then converted through phase 2 detox with amino acids typically to be excreted in urine and or through bile. So what happens is we get this bottleneck where phase 1 detox is really good. Typically it's quite fast. And so we get products through that process. We have a bottleneck before things are being pushed through phase 2. So what we want to do in a true and most medically appropriate chemical detoxification or in a detox program is we have to make sure we're opening up the valves to make sure that phase 2 detoxification is optimized. And that is something that almost every consumer-based fad detox does not do or does very poorly without respecting a level of individuality for how your body genetically is created. Some people have single nucleotide polymorphisms or tiny little mutations in their DNA, in the parts of their DNA that code for the proteins that we use in phase 2 detoxification or in phase 1 detox for that matter as well. And that can render our ability to execute on phase 1 or phase 2 detox in either that can be faster for some people or more efficient, and it can be less efficient in other people. And so taking one herb to boost all of phase 2 detoxification, which may or may not target specific enzymes, that's where we really need to get some level of understanding of that functional genetic uniqueness and individuality. So that's why, understanding how our bodies and brains are built at the DNA level can really allow us to optimize a detoxification scheme or program as well. But coming back to protein, detoxing without adequate protein is probably doing more harm than good in the long term. If you're doing a detox without getting enough protein and you're not consuming protein during that process of detox, that can be harmful for you in the long term, even though you might initially feel better or feel better immediately following that cleanse, because we are impacting or negatively impacting our body's ability to clear things out of the body and to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress in response to those reactive intermediates. Oh, and then remember that carb coma that we talked about in problem number 1. Well, adequate protein and fiber, intake of adequate protein and fiber also helps to balance blood sugar, which means more regular energy levels throughout a detoxification process and fewer cravings and hunger pangs and crashes throughout that period as well. So if you are finding that you have done cleanses or detoxes before and you are finding yourself very hungry, part of that is very likely because you're not getting enough protein. So mistake number 3 is not optimizing or personalizing nutrients. And we talked briefly about this in that last section when we talked about optimizing detox enzymes, detox pathways, and the genetic SNPs or mutations that can exist, that can impair or boost our ability to detox certain types of chemicals or make us very good at detoxing certain things as well. But chemical detoxification, if you haven't figured out already, is a very complicated process. Myriad of enzymes are necessary to transform and clear processed hormones and other chemicals from our body. Most enzymes require cofactors for them to work. Cofactors are like the keys to the ignition that turn on the enzyme machine, the car that runs the key that turns on the machine for that enzyme to function. Many of the detoxification enzymes that metabolize our hormones, for instance, require vitamin B6. Energy production in general requires magnesium, B6, B12, amongst many others as cofactors. antioxidants of all kinds can help to support our biggest and best antioxidant that our liver produces in our body, and that's called glutathione. SNPs along any of those enzymatic pathways can render us requiring more or less or certain forms of those vitamins. So that's an important process here as well when it comes to functional genetics. These are just some of the nutrients that we need to optimize detoxification and the clearance of toxic load. I actually really hate the term toxic load, but whatever, I said it. But we need that to clear inflammation and toxic load out of our bodies. We need those cofactors. Functional genetic testing can shed a light on which enzymes may be the highest priorities for boosting in detoxification and where there might be more or less of a need for additional supplementation and specific either micronutrients or essential nutrients for us to run those processes. This helps us make really evidence-informed decisions. Functional genetics, that is, allows us to make even better evidence-informed decisions about which, if any, additional supplements are needed and which might be dangerous and cause more harm or for us to get side effects from, for that matter, when we're going through a detox. So understanding that